evening once again, and welcome to another Doctor and Call program. This evening, folks, we will be talking about something very interesting. Yes, health, but also we want to focus a bit on the profession, because a lot of times we feel unwell and we go to the doctor. And we talk to the doctor, we explain what is happening. The doctors, they listen, they do their tests, their checks, whatever, do the diagnosis, and of course, we get our prescriptions if needed. And then in a matter of days, sometimes hours, we back on track, and this is a very, very, very wonderful feeling, just comparing how you felt before you went to see the doctor and the feeling after you coming from the doctor. And of course, it is something that helps it helps boost your confidence and everything. So tonight we focus on the profession. But before we do that, we welcome all our viewers on GBN Television 7 and 11, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also our listeners on K105 FM. It's always a pleasure to be here. And of course, a little later, we'll open the telephone lines. And so you can also contribute to the program by way of questions or experiences, whatever. So once again, welcome. And it's a good time to welcome Doc. Doc, good evening. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening, and good evening to Grenada and everybody who's listening to us and joining us on whatever platform, especially my friends in the diaspora. I'm a day.
You did.
And then watching the dry season get wet.
Yes, actually, Doc, earlier this afternoon, on our agricultural program, I was talking to Daniel, and I was explaining to him that we're getting excellent weather for doing a little agriculture around the house. We're getting the sunshine and we're getting the rain, so the conditions are favorable to plant a little something around the house, a little vegetable, a little banana, something that you can definitely, benefit from.
I'll tell you why we give thanks, because last year at this time, it was pure dry season. And then the rain came down and rocked everybody's crop.
Yes.
Everybody's crop. I look at those guys, the farmers in my community almost cry. So we give thanks for this.
We have to, because, of course, remember, we're still we just actually started April. We've not gotten into the heat wave months as yet. So
we've had some days, that not very promising.
Yeah. But I hope that this year will not be as hot as 23 and 24. Of course, we all know 24 so far is the hottest year on record. And so we hope that 25 will not be as hot. I don't believe so, because based on some of the weather phenomenon, I hope that we would have a much cooler year in 2025. But let's keep our fingers crossed, because with climate change, you know how the thing go. All right?
Prognosis for severe storms. And I think it's time for us to get ready. We can't wait until June comes. We just said June too soon. Remember last year? July and we are hit. So, we need to review our homes. We know what the standards are, or at least know where we'll go if there's a storm. And so to limit the damage, you have to be prepared. To limit the disaster, you have to be prepared. Definitely. Right? Being prepared is what is important to all of us.
Yeah. And the thing is, Doc, being prepared is one thing. I mean, there's some things, yes, if we're prepared, we can minimize some of the damages. But at the same time, when this disaster strikes, people can get hurt. And when people are hurt, they need to visit the doctors, the physicians, to ensure that they get the adequate care needed. But of course, if the doctors are not prepared, if the environment is not conducive for doing what they do best, then we will not be able to get the care that we require. And so, Doc, tonight I want to focus a bit on that. I mean, you've been a doctor for what? Let me guess. I don't know what I'm going to guess. I think you've probably been a doctor for well over 30 years. A long time.
You're trying to make people guess my age?
No. All I'm saying is that you started
over 30 years. Yes. Right. Comfortably well over 30 years.
I was about to tell you that what I was saying is that you probably started the profession at a very young age.
Well, yes. No,
yes,
I was not such a prodigy, but
yeah,
go on.
I know. But so yes. You've been a doctor for a long time, but you did not just get up one day and become a doctor. Let's talk a little bit about that. How did you become a doctor? Yes, we know you had to go and study, but just briefly take us through that, and then we will get onto the profession.
You want to know my business, my personal business?
No, not necessarily yours. The fraternity.
I can show you the beginnings, because I come from a family where most of my cousins are relatively well accomplished. Okay, we did well in school and stuff. Education was very important. But growing up in a rural community, you are very involved in what happened in your rural community. I live 3 miles from town. I tell my friends I live in the country. I like this. This is fine for me. I'm comfortable. So you kind of have that kind of stuff where everybody helps everybody takes care of everybody, right? But I was like 4 years old, and my grandfather walked in the house one. My grandfather, well, when you're little, everybody's tall, okay? And my grandfather was really a tall man, and he looked at me and told me, "Oh, you're going to be a doctor." I'm like, "What do this man?" But then I'm like, "Woo!"
You got excited. You got excited, yes.
It was interesting. Nobody ever told me what I was going to be, but he didn't tell me what I never had any negative words expressed to me in my family, which is one of the things we have to stop doing to our children, right? But it's always been what I know I want to be.
Right.
Afraid dead people. Everybody afraid dead people live in the country because there's zombie, larger bless, mama, malady, you name what it is, all related to death. But I tell you, medical school can be kind of scary, because you hear about it and it's a lot of work. So you have to be prepared. Not only people say, you ask a lot of my colleagues when they're young, why did you learn medicine? I want to help people.
Right.
And I think it's still ideal. A lot of potential doctors go into take up the career path because they really want to help people. Right, we see sickness and death. I mean, we've been watching images of the Far East with Myanmar and Thailand and those things, and look at buildings pancaking. Unfortunately, we're looking at them in almost real time. Looking at it real. This is not a makeup. This is not a movie. This is real. We've seen Palestine. We may not have seen things like South Sudan and other countries where you have so many people displaced and all who have needs for care. Okay? We may not have seen that. We may not have heard that today the Department of Health and Human Services in the US, just like the Ministry of Health, sent home 10,000 workers. Hello? There are 328 million people live in the US, okay? 10,000 workers from health services is a lot, all right? So, but going to medical school, it's just not easy. And everybody has their individual experiences. The bottom line is a lot of work. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, a lot of work to do, a lot of information to accumulate in short years. So here, for example, first of all, you have to be qualified. You have to have at least college level preparation, which is like A levels, okay? In science subjects, in the subjects that are, just like you're going to do engineering and math and physics and that kind of stuff. If you're going to do medicine, at least you must have some understanding of human life or animal life and chemistry and those other things, so you can that is your foundational knowledge that you require. And then getting into medical school is relatively not just competitive, but it's also very expensive, right? It costs a whole lot of money to train a doctor. I was talking to a young lady who did dentistry, and I mean, it's costing $300,000 plus $1,000 to go to dental school. When do you make that money?
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time you get out of dental school, it's time for you to get married and have your children and have a home and the other things that ordinary people have. But dental school, medical school is a stressful place because you always have goals and very short goals. So let's say you are doing, I want to say something that we hardly do. Ethical, medical ethics or medical legal studies. Those are short courses. They're probably like 2 weeks of classes, right? And you have all the material, and you still have to do an exam at the end of it with all the material to read. But remember, when you're doing medical legal studies or you're doing what did I tell you? Ethics,
yeah,
right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which are two different things. When you're doing that, remember, you're still doing histology and anatomy and physiology and all the other things, or biochemistry, or clinical skills, or whatever it is, right? There's still other things going on. So it's not like, all right, these 2 weeks we're going to do medical ethics. No, there are other things that you have to do and keep up to date with. So it's a lot of work. It's a very stressful time. And so people going to medical school require a lot of support, very little distraction. Not like me, I party a lot, but I made sure I did my work before I partied, right? But you have to keep a good balance. It's just like you have to have a good study life balance. You have to do things, go to the theater, go to the movies, go to the beach, read, do stuff, right? I have seen us in medical school when we got so stressed, we sit and play clap hand games, half hour, because everybody's on top of everybody else's head. And we get together and play some ring games and laugh and behave like fools. And then you go back to study, right? But it is not an easy time. Remember, for a lot of us, it's the first time some people are leaving home, right? And remember, you might have come from TAMCC as a bright girl, but when you get to university or wherever and you have another 99 bright students, you have to compete with people at your level.
Yes.
Right? You no longer stand out. It becomes, and you have the social and the racial and the whatever challenges to face. It becomes very difficult. You still have to provide food for yourself. You still have to do your laundry and live like a regular being with so much work, so little sleep, so much competitiveness, so many other isms and schisms. So you have to be really be devoted to wanting to make this your career, with the hope that yes, my life will get better. I'll probably earn a decent living. My children will be fine. Especially those of us who came from working class families, where we kind of needed to transcend that a very large boundary in order to take our family way beyond. Okay, so knowing your subjects, preparing, going to medical school, and then when you're finished with your clinical your basic science studies, the things that give you an insight into the human body and how it functions. You have your clinical areas where you go and you rotate into the medicine, gynecology, blah blah blah, right? And then you graduate as a theorist, basically, because you don't have a lot of experience. Because medicine is really going out there and practicing medicine. You have to go out there and understand patients, because no two patients are the same. And we've seen it. We've seen it in COVID, how different people appeared differently. COVID was one of the time when we had a lot of sick people together, right? And then when you finish those 2 years, when you finish the 2 years of hospital per se, you graduate, right? But then you still have to do your internship and focus on the area that you'd like to specialize in. It's a long road. So 6 years, let's say, for just going to university for medicine. Okay? Because even after you graduate after 4 years, you still have to do those 2 years and then get into a residency program. It is a lot of work and a long time. Right? And then you come to hospital. Listen to me, you see doctors walking back and forth, and sometimes we think they're not doing anything. No, they're on their way to do something else. The conscientious doctors don't sit and allow people to stew. But nor can we have tired doctors taking care of sick people.
Right. You sort of set it up so nice for my next question, because 6 years in university, your residency, internship, and this is just the first part of it. You following that, you are now faced with the situation where people who are unwell are coming to you with the expectation that you are going to change their lives. Because being sick is something that everyone feels a little fearful about. So you go to the doctor, and of course you go with high hopes that when I come from there, I will be a different person. I will be well, and all of that. The fear I had of probably being hospitalized or for that matter, dying to the extreme, dying. The doctor is going to fix that. He's going to change that. And this is where I want us to focus a lot. That working environment, when a patient comes to you, and of course the doctor is also a normal human being like everyone else. A doctor is someone that can get sick just like the person who is coming to you so that you can work a miracle for them. Let's talk about that environment and what it means, and how does the doctor function.
I want to read a little something for you quickly, because I think what we need to focus is on the doctor's health and his well-being, right? Both of them are very crucial things, because there's the demand, which we're going to talk about after, how you expect it to function, right? It encompasses physical, mental, social, and all those aspects of life, just like in health. So health for doctor, what is health? It's the same thing, but you put into even more critical area, and an area where it can be easily criticized, right? Where there are unique stressors, right? Where you're required to be well all the time, right? So that you can provide this workforce, right? You can make sure we have a sustainable workforce, because we're supposed to keep the population well, right? Okay? Through provision of best patient care. So apart from being people who need care, a lot of times we are expected to provide the best possible patient care. And sometimes that's something that people miss, that doctors are people too. And I'm not talking about a doctor who refuses to turn up to work or stuff, because what I wanted to say, there's a certain ethical and moral framework within which the doctor is expected to function. Okay? You must come to work. You must come to work appropriately dressed. You must speak. There's a language you use, a simple language you use that shows that you respect the persons who seek care. Because oftentimes people who are sick are very vulnerable. So even if there's a prime minister, right, when he's sick, he feels sick and he feels, I need somebody who has empathy, who understands how I feel. But you also have knowledge. You can't go and do things that you're not trained to do. The whole issue of credentialing, you're allowed to function as far as your knowledge, your credentials lead you. So there's no need to pretend that you're a neurosurgeon if you're just you're emergency room physician, right? Or to pretend that you can go into theater and remove an appendix if you are a community healthcare physician, unless you train and have those kind of credentials. So being prepared to do what is required, being placed in the right place to do the job, right? Working within an ethical framework. And of course, our moral behaviors is very important, because people see you there when you're drunk and disorderly. People see you out there if you're beating your wife. And I'm not saying that's what happens to my colleagues. I'm just saying, I'm speaking across the board. People see you out there if you're extorting. People see you out there if you're dealing drugs. I want to share with you a story. I worked in the ER in another jurisdiction, which you probably understand. And there was a young man in there. And one day, a woman came. It turned out that she was one of my very close friends' girlfriend. And I knew her, right? So I saw her walk and said, hey, what happened to you? She says, oh, I'm glad to see you. I said, what happened? She says, and she looked very, very ill. She says, oh, I have a pain in my chest. I said, really? She said, yeah, but I saw Dr. X, young man, younger than me. I was person in charge at that time. And I said to her, oh, she said, I went at a call, I got a cold because she was a salesperson. They went buying stuff. They went, going from client to client. And at one point, her friend with who she was traveling left her in the car rain came down and there was no AC. So she ran into the rain and she got a cold.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 days she's having chest pain, splinting pain, meaning she breathes and she really has pain. She's sick and she has general, poor state of being. Guy sees her and I said to her, "Where's the pain?" And I listened to her. I said, "Oh, I think you have pneumonia." She said, "You do?" She says, "Yes." And then what he gave her something an injection for the pain, which would not work because there's injection for smooth muscle and injection for striated muscle, right? So the injection that works for your belly cramp is not going to work for the pain in your thighs or in your hand. So I got the impression that she had paid him. No, we work in the government sector. We already paid. We have a salary which covers us seeing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no need. So there's one ethical thing. I got the impression. I sent her an x-ray and there was her shadow. He listened to her, didn't even listen to her correctly, of course, right? And gave her some medication that would not have worked. I just gave her pain medication. When in truth and in fact, she had a pneumonia. That aside, I called him and I said to him, "Listen, I get the feeling that you took money from the lady and that, that's inappropriate. And I really should report you to the director of the hospital, right? But I'm going to warn you, you're young, right? And you can get into, you would get into trouble if those are the habits you create from now, because you're still kind of new, right? As an intern."
Right.
He looked at me and smirked and walked off. And I didn't see that guy he worked for a while and then he went away. And then I saw him probably let's say 8 years later. And shortly after that, he got arrested for a serious crime, still related to greed. I don't know, I felt sorry for him as an individual, but I didn't feel sorry for him because of his practices. But I'm saying this to say, we have to be careful that we don't get involved in those things, that we don't do false papers. There are parameters, there are moral parameters that lead us, and sometimes can be difficult. Okay, everybody knows, do not come to my office if you need sick leave. Just so. I don't do HR, that's my public statement. Okay, if you're sick, I will give you the time you need up, but don't come say you're tired. Go to HR and take your vacation. All right? If you're tired and you need care, I will give you care. But we're not supposed to be going to the doctor and putting our doctors under pressure. And I know a lot of people go to the hospital and put the doctors under pressure, right? And threaten. And that is actually the threats of violence, where you cuss and you go on. That's violence against our physicians. So while we expect them to behave a certain way, there are ways that we treat them with respect, right? And you come in the ER and you cuss and you go on the ward and you trace up the nurse and all this. That's not good. It demoralizes, because remember that a physician is a human person that have just the same kind of problems. And I'm not making excuses for my delinquent. And there are a few, not a whole lot of them. But generally, remember, the physician you see may have been on call all night and don't sleep. Okay? We're expected that our physicians will be placed in situations, since most people work generally in the government sector first, when you come into medical school. That's where you get experience and stuff, right? We expected that they're placed in an environment where you have adequate allocation of doctors and nurses, of course, right? And other professionals. So it's a harmonious environment, and we can do what a profession requires. But also, you must feel there must be equipment to work with, and you must have the amount of doctors that will complement you, so that you're not up all night running back and forth. Let's say in gynecology, right? You need to have somebody who supervises you. You shouldn't be running back and forth doing every delivery that has come, plus having to go to the theater to do a C-section, plus a woman at ectopic pregnancy that you need to go see. There are those things that happen occasionally, but there must be a safety net for the doctor to be able. Guess what? Sometimes the next morning you have clinic and you're barely dragging yourself, right, to get a clinic done, and you still have your ward to clear. There is a lot of work, right? And while I'm saying that my colleagues have a responsibility to communicate appropriately, they're people too. Sometimes we go and we're a little aggressive, or we feel that things are not happening, and there are ways to make things happen. Human beings will become very defensive if they feel threatened. And we have to limit the violence that we put up against our healthcare professionals, all of them. Okay? When you walk into the ER, you walk into the ward and you need to have information, it is important to approach the healthcare professionals and your doctor in particular with a certain amount of respect. If you disrespect you, trust me, there is a way to deal with that. All right? So, but the doctors also required to have, you still have to buy food and buy clothes and take care of kids and all the rest. So there must be remuneration for the work we do, because the work that physicians do is very crucial work. It's very specialized work. Okay? So we must make sure that there's support for them, whether they're trainees, whether they're specialists, right? And whether they come from Grenada, whether they study at SGU or they study at University of Leeds or they study at University of Havana or Santiago or down in Cartagena or in Mexico, it doesn't really matter, or wherever they serve. We must make sure that we give them the support that they require throughout all stages of their career. That is very, very important, right? Most of us don't go and seek the mental health care that we deserve, which is one of the biggest problems, I think, right? Because if you go to work and every day people are cussing you off, trust me, it weathers you. It bruises and constantly bruises. And you may turn a blind eye or you may turn your back, right? If you work very hard and not appropriately remunerated, you take it for a while and feel, look, this is what I have to do and there's not money. But there comes a point when changes have to be made to ensure that your physician, that person, right, feels like him a person and he's being treated fairly.
Doc, just take a pin. I want to, as you said this, I was, in fact, today, well, let me just say, folks, now, March 30th was World Doctors Day, and we're a couple days late, but, that's one of the reasons why we sort of want to focus on that. But I wanted to just share a little something with our viewers and listeners. So it says, and this is from the World Health Organization, doctors worldwide are facing high levels of burnout, depression, anxiety, and suicide. They dedicate their lives to healing others, yet their own mental health is often overlooked. And they highlighted a couple of key facts. One, work overload, low pay, unsafe environments, and stigma leave many struggling in silence. The WHO warns of a shortfall of 11 million health workers by 2030. Female doctors are 76% more likely to die by suicide than other women. And only 35% of countries offer national work-related mental health support programs. Some key facts as it relates to doctors and the profession. And Doc, you can go on now and speak on these.
So, and that's bad news, isn't it?
Not good, definitely.
So I want to go back. You guys remember October 7th, 2023, when they started bombing Palestine?
Yeah.
And you remember the doctors in the hospital?
October 20th.
October 20th. Oh,
yeah.
October
I remember it because there is something specific about that date. Never forget that.
You have to tell me that. You have to tell me that off air, but...
Yes, October 20th.
So, October 7th was when they kind of declared war. But the bottom line is, you remember those physicians in those hospitals function with nothing?
Yes.
How many physicians you think have seen their own families brought in dead, their children brought in dead because they haven't been home for a week, 2 weeks? They ain't going home. They're working, get a little sleep when they can, get up and back working, do an emergency, and just piling up dead. Watching your neighbors children, watching your neighbors' wives, watching your neighbors' mothers, grandmothers, all the people, right, being killed off.
And in addition, And in addition, some of them were killed while trying to help others.
And the hospitals being bombed.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I remember when being told that there's an unwritten law that gunmen don't harass doctors and nurses, especially downtown Kingston. But as a gunman them that come from downtown Kingston, once the other gunmen started to migrate, the doctors and the nurses' lives became a little unsafe.
Yeah.
Right? I've known of time when gunmen went into Kingston Public Hospital, for example, and everybody had to scatter and run, and who hide behind toilet bowl. Try fit behind the toilet bowl in your house. Some of them did. And ran into the showers, pull the curtains. It was really because they came to take away their friend who was shot and put, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have shootout in a hospital where you have people who are very ill, okay? What are you going to do? You can't cover patients with your body. You have to run away to live another day to be able to save whoever comes in after. So there are those things. And then, you'll hear criticism. Can't kill gunman. Okay? At the same time, I have experience being threatened. I remember a guy promising to kill me. Normally do favors. I work ER, but I work the fast part of the ER. I'm not stopping seeing my emergency patients so I can see somebody who have a bruise on their hand or who have a lesion on their foot. No, because you have to go by what is there's statutes, there are things that guide how you practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm in an emergency room and I'm seeing emergency cases, and you come and you have cough and cold, I'm not going to see you now, not until I'm finishing my cases. And those guys know I would help, right? And most of the doctors would help. But if you have very ill patients, you have to see is order of arrival, yes.
Uh-huh.
But before that is severity of illness.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the rule. And sometimes we don't understand. You may see the doctors inside the hospital, look like they're not doing anything, but they have been taking care of people who are severely ill. And people who are severely ill require time and observation and medications, and sometimes you have to consult with your colleagues to ensure that you do the right thing. Sometimes you're just waiting for somebody for the person to get into surgery, and the bed is occupied. You can't really put anybody else because there's no bed,
mm-hmm.
right? So there are a lot of onions, a lot of layers on the onions that sometimes people do not understand. And while I expect that they would be polite in translating that information, some people are not having it. Your doctor has stress too. If he can't pay his mortgage, if he has had an accident and broke his leg or broke his back, right? If he's had whatever challenges, if his children are sick, if his wife is ill, right? If her mother is dying, right? There are circumstances which you have to deal. I do not know here that there are services that offer that kind of psychological support and even social support.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there are safety nets. And it can be hard. You can't keep squeezing. When you squeeze all the juice on the lemon, you have to throw away the skin. It's useless. Right? So we have to make sure that there are ways to replenish. And that will include having appropriate remuneration, paying them sufficient money so they feel satisfied. So when they get 2 days off, they can take their family out to dinner, or they can, take a boat and go to Carriacou and eat some redfish, whatever it is, so that people can remake themselves.
But also, Doc, there's also another side. There are those who probably had to undertake huge loans from financial
This is what I was coming to.
institutions.
I told you. There are people who are the guys who come out of University of the West Indies will tell you they come out with $200,000 of debt, right? They have to work and pay it. And remember, they probably have to, if you come from St. Patrick's and live in town, you work at a hospital, you know how to find a place to rent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't have to find a place to rent to live. You need transportation. There are amenities that you have to have in order to facilitate your being able to deliver the quality of care that people need.
Yes,
right?
yes, indeed. Very, very, very important.
So one of the things, and I'm looking at here, critical incident debriefing. I don't know if that happens. So remember we were just talking about the situation with where the gunmen came into the hospital,
yes,
right? You have to do debriefing. You need counseling. You have to take people. What did you see? How do you feel about it? What can we do? Do you think you need some medication support? Those are the things, right? We have to make sure that we have we have safety nets. We have systems that we deal with. One of the challenges that doctors face is the whole issue of bullying. The people at the top bully the people at the bottom, right? The whole thing of sexual discrimination. I don't know why my sexual orientation is anybody's problem. If I'm coming and taking care of my patient, that is my business. Okay? That is my business. And harassing, whether you're going to harass sexually or otherwise, those are things that you have to make sure do not exist within the environment so that doctors can give their But it happens. We're seeing people bully and harass, and people who have different sexual orientation are treated differently, are despised. I remember a young guy, a nurse, male nurse, right, had to leave his job because they discovered he was gay. In this 2014, right? Had to leave his job. Only breadwinner for his family. Coming out of poverty, first person to go to professional school to be able to do something, right? And the staff, he was having challenges. Plus he had mental health issues, right? That he had to say, look, I'm dealing with this, I'm studying, I'm trying to make sure my mother's been ill, a whole lot of stuff. Yet the people who had the capacity and who had the wherewithal to support him did not, and urged him to resign. And that guy went home, and in 6 months, at 32 years old, he had a heart attack and died. Okay? At 32 years, the best nurse, one of the best nurses I've ever worked with, right? Had a heart attack and died simply because he was harassed, simply because he was treated differently. He was discriminated because of sexual orientation, simply because he was bullied. Because I looked at him. I stood in the hospital when I said, what's the story? Nurse stood over him while he's doing his medication. Stood leaning up. I said, why are you leaning up over him? Didn't know what was going on there. I said, why don't you give him a break to do what he's doing? No, I'm just supporting. I said, no, you're not. You're harassing him. Just leave him alone. And then I understood that she was placed by the senior staff to watch him, right? And he did his work perfectly well, right? So we have to be very careful how we treat our physicians, especially when they come to give care, because the business, the reason why they're there is to care for the people who turn up. What does your doctor ask you when you go to the doctor? When you go, what does your doctor say to you? Good morning, Mr. What's the question he asks you? The first question.
Usually I would ask you, how can I help you today? What can I do for you today?
What can I do for you today? And then you say to him, Doc, my knee hurting you. Does he say, I don't know nothing about that? Or he say, I can't help you? He doesn't.
He starts touching the knee and may ask you to let him have a look at it and things like that.
He's to send you to somebody else. He may have to send you to buy, to do bloods and x-rays and all the rest of it. But once you enter into that informal, not as in that contract where the doctor says, how can I help you today? What's going on with you? And you say, Doc, I come to you because my head hurting me from 6 months now. And he says, okay, contract is sealed. He has a responsibility to take you to the end of until your problem is understood what it is. And if there's a solution, that a solution is offered, but at least you know what is going on, right? He has a responsibility to, in a timely fashion, ensure that you get to the levels of care that you deserve. So if a woman went into hospital and she had an ectopic pregnancy, the doctor should be able to determine, he should be, if he works in the ER, he should be able to discern that the person has an ectopic pregnancy, which is an emergency, which is a surgical emergency. A woman will die. A woman will certainly die if her ectopic pregnancy is not cared for immediately, right? But he must ensure that she is taken care of and she goes to the proper care. he's not going to say, go on the back and come and fix your ectopic, because he doesn't have the capacity to do that. Okay? The way you work also must ensure they put you into a place where you can serve appropriately. So why would you take me with 30 years of experience, right? And put me to screen patients in front of the door, and there's nothing wrong with me. When I can see 6 patients comfortably in an hour and make sure that they're well cared for and that they sent to wherever they went, where my discerning capacity is relatively well developed. Why would you do that? Why would you put me lower than in a place lower than I'm able to perform? Right? That's frustrating. That's bullying. Okay? And that's a waste of resources, especially in a time when we know in our environment and globally, you say, we'll be what? How many doctors we're going to need? 11 million?
Yeah, we'll short that.
By 2030.
By 2030,
already
yeah.
Here we know we have a shortage. And we have a shortage of people who have specialized knowledge, okay? We have a urologist. We don't have a urologist, somebody who is a surgeon that focuses on the genitals and kidneys and stuff, right? We don't have in the system, in the public health system, we don't have a rheumatologist. How much of us have arthritis? How much of us have
everybody?
How much of us have things like rheumatoid arthritis, other severe allergies? How many of us have, what else is rheumatologist? Just a whole lot of stuff that is required to be seen, right? And there aren't people. So when you have somebody who comes and is able to deliver the service, we have to appreciate them. Okay?
And
we have to appreciate them.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break in a moment, but as you mentioned that everybody have to be seen, my mind just went back to our period of COVID-19 where patients were like flowing in left, right, and center. And in addition to that, there were still those patients with the chronic conditions who needed, attention and all of that. So we're going to look at that kind of environment when we come back from the break. So we're going to take a short break, folks, and we're going to come back with you in just a moment. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the live Super 6 draw presentation for this evening, Tuesday, the 1st of April, 2025. I am your hostess, Kijan Smith. Super 6 is a multi-jurisdictional game owned by Winlot Inc. and is played within the islands of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Lucia. Tonight's jackpot is valued at $230,000. We'll now get ready to select your free ticket letter. Good luck. Is L. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with tonight's winning numbers.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way. Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money,
the jackpot galore. Play more, win more, have more fun.
With more jackpot money,
Super 6 is my number one.
With the new and improved Super 6 team, the jackpot keep growing and growing
and growing.
Yeah. bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Great news about Super 6. You can play Super 6 combo bets to increase your chances at winning the Super 6 jackpot. Here's how. The combo 5 betting option costs $69. Players have a choice of any 5 numbers, and if you match 5 of the 6 numbers, you win the jackpot. Maybe you prefer combo 7, costing $21. With a choice of 7 numbers, and if you match any 6 numbers out of the 7 numbers, you win the jackpot. How about combo 8? This option costs $84. Players select 8 numbers, and if you match any 6 numbers out of the 8 numbers, you win the jackpot. All numbers chosen should be from a range of 1 to 28. Play combo bets. Remember, with Super 6, there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win.
Welcome back. Get ready for your Super 6 winning numbers. Good luck. The first number is 22. The second number is 10. The third number is 7. The fourth number is 11. The fifth number is 28. And the final number is 6. To recap, your Super 6 winning numbers are 22, 10, 7, 11, 28, and 6. Your free ticket letter is L. Tonight's winning numbers were drawn under the supervision of an auditor from BDO. Please contact your relevant Central Lottery office for further information on the payment of prizes. Thank you all for playing responsibly, and remember, with Super 6, there are bigger jackpots and more chances to win. Our next Super 6 draw takes place on Friday, the 4th of April, 2025. Until then, have yourself a wonderful evening.
GBM presents the 2025 Maggie King of the Grill, Saturday, June 7th, Mon Rouge Plainfield from 11 a.m. Our partners, Maggie, the secret of great flavor, Grenada Distillers Limited, makers of Clark's Court, Grenada's #1 rum, Grenada Paper Products, makers of Cherish, Spring Soft, Hammer Bay, and Super Value Toilet Paper, and Royal, Quick and Easy, and Horizon Paper Towels, Budget Foods Inc., Classic Lighting, and Blue Bubbles PA Rental and Event Supplies. It's the 2025 Maggie King of the Grill, where flavor rules. Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor and Call, and tonight we're looking at the profession. If you joined us late and you missed, some aspect of it, we're looking at the profession of the doctor. The conditions and what is involved. Doc, before the break, we were talking a little bit about the conditions, and then my mind went to the period of COVID-19, where, of course, the workload of our physicians, just like that, sort of skyrocketed. how do we, or how does a doctor deal with situations like that? You know, because of course we spoke earlier of the issue of burnout and all of that, you know, having to work long hours. And maybe you could probably share with us how much hours should a doctor work in any given day to ensure that he gives his or her best?
Well, the work day for everybody is 8 hours. That's what the law says.
Okay.
However, you know, we need 24-hour coverage in health. People don't choose what time they're going to get sick. Baby don't choose what time. On what we're doing. If I'm in ICU, I probably need 24-hour care, and my doctor needs to be coming in and make sure that I'm okay, right? In the ER, you certainly have to cover 24 hours, and etc. It varies what needed. In the community clinics, we can give services during the daytime hours. People come during working hours, and there's some services that are open till late, so that people come home from work and they get a chance still to go get primary care. But the working hours is 8 hours. The truth is, how does management plan to ensure that care is given depending on the facility in which you find yourself? When you go to work as in a hospital, you're expected to take calls, in other words, to cover from 4 o'clock till 8 o'clock the next morning. In some environments, doctors are paid extra depending on whatever negotiations they've had with whoever their union or whatever covers them. It varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Based on your contract, you know that you have to cover. Mm-hmm. Okay? You're expected to take call, right? Call starts from 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the regular day is over, goes through the night till in the morning. So when you turn up in the night, or your wife turn up in the night to have a baby and needs to be evaluated, right? The doctor who's on duty is called. You know, the nurse will inform him what she sees. If there's a challenge, a person who might be miscarrying, right? The doctor, the person called for gynae and obstetrics is going to have to turn up and examine the patient and decide whether the person, you know, is going to be admitted to the hospital. Most likely would have to be, and whether or not this is a miscarriage that's complete, and we just need to take it to theater and make sure there's nothing remaining in there. Right. That can be toxic for the patient, right? So somebody has to be there at all times. And like I say, some jurisdictions, depending on negotiations with your union, etc., pay you per call. You're expected in a properly staffed health environment to do a certain amount of calls per month. Some people, you shouldn't be less than 1 in 3 nights. Mm-hmm. Okay, so every 4th night you should be taking call. All right? But that doesn't always happen. I don't know how it's paid here. I don't know if people get extra pay when they do extra time, and probably that is what should be happening. Okay? Mm-hmm. But you make sure that your services are covered at all times. The truth is we are short-staffed. So sometimes you have to take call every 2 days, and I've known senior staff who's covered for a whole week, who have to cover for the whole week. I'm talking about consultant level. Hope to goodness that you have good staff at the bottom who can take care of stuff. You don't have to come in and see every patient, right? But the rest of the doctors are expected to be there and at hand. But the senior staff also have to cover. They have to cover every night, mm-hmm. right? So it doesn't matter how high you get up the totem pole, you still have calls to do because there are patients who are ill. So whether you're an intern, a house officer, a senior house officer, or a specialist, or especially a consultant position, you are required. That's an understanding once you're employed to a facility. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the conditions may vary from point to point, and how you're remunerated may vary, but you're expected to work. Right. So sometimes, you know, you may come to the ER and you have a twisted ankle, and the person who is on for orthopedics may walk in, right? And may need to see you, but the truth is they have somebody already in theater and have to go scrub. You have to scrub 9 minutes before you start work. before you start do surgery, they just can't see right now. And there's a polite way of saying, Miss John, I know you've been here, but it's going to take a little longer. Just need to tell patients, I really can't see right now, but I'm going to come as soon as I can. Patients understand, I believe it or not. Right. They just want you to show that they want you to show that you've seen them, that you're aware that they're there. And don't give patients things to hold, story to hold. I'm coming back in a little while and you're going home.
Yeah. I think there's the psychological aspect of this thing. When the doctor speaks to you, even before probably attending and doing the diagnosis, it builds your confidence. It makes you feel a little better, and these are things that should be given serious consideration. But Doc, I want to take it. Yeah, just before. Yeah, go ahead when you finish.
So one of the things that we have to do as physicians is be able to build trust. I think trust is is probably the most important phenomena that must exist between a physician and his patient. You must be able to, I trust you. You have to give me all the information now. Don't come and give me half a story and stuff, okay? So there must be that trust where you tell me everything and I hear everything and I recognize that you have a challenge and we work with it and you rely on me to be able to help you to solve the problem. And we work together to solve the problem because doctor can't do everything. You have to participate.
Right. So excellent. And I was going to ask you, what about the issue of uncertainty with the physician? So a patient comes to you, and the patient outlines to you what is happening, what he's feeling, what is going on, and he's feeling badly, and all of that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear after patient comes to you.
Yeah. So something the patient comes and they sort of relates to you what is happening. All right, and at any time, have you? Maybe let me ask you personally, and you can respond accordingly. Have you ever felt any levels of uncertainty as it relates to what you need to do with your patient to ensure that your patient gets well, or if when you get to that point, then you do a referral?
So remember two things. One, we said in the beginning that I'm responsible for the patient's health and well-being and staying alive. Okay? So that's the first thing. But I'm also required to know what my limits are, what my limitations are. Right. And everybody has limitations. I tell you something. My internal medicine colleagues will not see a pediatric case.
Okay.
They don't like pediatric patients. Okay? They will not. If there's an emergency, they'll probably try their best. Some of them will not see, most of my colleagues don't want to see no mentally ill patients. But if the person comes and you're the one that's there, you're going to have to face the drum, right? You may not know exactly what it is, but there's always the possibility of consulting. And I can tell you, working in the ER, I have consulted with people who just came out of medical school. Guess what? When they just come from medical school and exam, they have all the information.
They're fresh. They're fresh, yes.
They're fresh. Their brain's soft and full of information. Always, there's nothing wrong with consulting, okay? And there's always somebody else you can ask. That's why you have consultants. And you maybe, again, the ER is a place where you see everything. If you're not sure, call one of the guys and ask them, hey, could you come and look at this? And I have told patients, I do not know what is going on with you, but I will do X. A lady came to my office once when I was living away, and she had all these lesions in her scalp. I noticed that she had some place where she didn't have hair growing, alopecia, right? I noticed that. And then one day she came to my office and I know she was sick. It's like, she's a teacher, so she comes when school finished, sick, fever, ill, and she has all this pus in her scalp. I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah, I can put it in the general category. What is this? And I said, look, I don't know what's going on here, but here's what I think it may be, right? And I gave her some medication. Trust me, on a prayer, because I said, Jesus, hold my pen and write. I tell you guys, I sat on my desk, and right, because I realized it's me alone in my office, and I don't have anybody immediately to consult. But then I called somebody after, or in my office, I will sit in front of the patient and say, let me ask Tom, which is what we're required to do. We don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. And some people think that because you ask somebody, it's because you don't know nothing. That is not so. It is important to use all the talent around in order to ensure the well-being of people. So there's no need to bad-mind your doctor or say things about it. Oh, he don't know. You're smart. You're lucky him tell you don't know instead of just writing a prescription, any old prescription, and send you home. You understand? We don't want to do that. We know also that we have the support of other investigative methods, like taking bloods, like doing an X-ray, doing a lumbar puncture, doing a whole lot of stuff, getting a sputum example, right? Look into your eyes, look into your ears, look in your throat, right? Doing colonoscopy. There are lots of methods that we can use to ensure. Just checking your urine. You'll be surprised. Just checking your urine or sending to do a stool test, the things that you can find in those diagnostic tests, okay? Diagnostic supportive tests. And of course, there's always X-ray and CAT scan and MRI and all the other big PET scans and other things, some of which are not available in our jurisdiction, but they're there. If a patient wants to go to the US, you can say, okay, let me organize this for you, if the patient can afford it. Sometimes you have to find the overseas facility to send a patient because you know what it is and you know that we don't have the method.
Right.
Your responsibility when you come in front of that person is to make sure you can stabilize them, right? If you have the diagnosis, or at least either way, make sure you can stabilize whatever is not going well. And try to find the diagnosis. Some things are easy to diagnose, some things you never even diagnose.
Right.
Okay? But we're required to use the services, which include the knowledge of your colleagues to ensure that a patient does not walk away uncertain. I saw a patient 2 days today who had gone to another facility and they just sent her home. Right? Nobody tried. It was something benign. The person who saw her, if they spent a couple more minutes, they'll be able to figure it out. But sometimes, again, we talk about burnout. A doctor who's burnt out, who don't have any more of himself to give, will have short thinking, will be irritable. Do you understand? Would not want to be there, would not be driven. Morally, he's going to be in a very degraded state. So we have to ensure that our doctors are not overworked till they're burnt out. Because what do? They don't give good services. Our outcomes of our patients are bad. And eventually the doctors find that they need to leave because why must I stay and suffer when I'm not getting paid for it anyway? When with the kind of salary I get, I don't need to stay here. Let me go elsewhere. You know, those are the things we have. We don't want to demoralize the limited amount of staff that we have. So there must be that bond between whoever the employer is, right, and the person who's giving the services, who's a doctor or the nurse in this case, but let's say the doctors, to make sure that there's some level of harmony that he can enjoy with his work environment. Making sure you have gloves. I remember us not having gloves in the hospital and not having syringes and needles and those kind of stuff. Not here, because I've never worked in this hospital. But I remember working elsewhere and they're not in the Caribbean and they're not stuffed. Very demoralizing for staff. Very demoralizing. Very, very, very demoralizing for the staff. So you must ensure that the facilities that are required, even if it is an injection needle, must be prepared so the doctor can do it. All things must be sterile. You know, you must have spaces, you must have sutures, you must have anesthetic injection and all this stuff. Those simple things the services with which doctors are employed must ensure, and that is the responsibility of the leadership, of whoever the management is, but they must ensure that the conditions under which the doctors have to work are basic, are just more than just basic. You must have paper or sheet on the bed, you know? You must have gloves, you must have where the patient can poop, where the patient can wash his hands, sanitizer. All those things are very important because those things will add up and create frustration and anxiety and burnout for our colleagues, for my colleagues.
Right. Doc, you mentioned a word earlier, stable. And I want to just,
stable?
And I just wanted to, ask something on it. Now, a lot of times, especially when there are accidents, so you may hear of an accident, someone probably is badly injured, and then, goes to the hospital, and then the next report you get that the patient is in a stable condition. You hear that a lot. The patient is in a stable condition. I believe that there are a lot of people, when they hear that, they somewhat get the impression that the patient is not doing bad. Explain it to me.
So I think what it means is that a patient is not expected to do badly. No. Because the patient may have come in seriously injured. And what you have to do is to create what we call homeostasis, that balance, like if the body will function in normal. So if they have a fracture, you might want to have, you might reduce the fracture, put the bones, realign the bones, put on a cast. If they have a punctured lung, you want to make sure you put in a tube, all the things, okay? Even if the patient is unconscious, the blood pressure, the blood glucose, the oxygenation, all of those things are still going. So when you look at the patient's vitals, they're within normal limits, right? The patient doesn't have any sign of distress. If they were bleeding, the bleeding is contained. All of those things go to making patients stable. The patient may still be in the danger zone, but we have control.
Because
so if you have,
I'll tell you, what I thought is that, so if you hear a patient is stable, is that the patient has not gotten worse, but has not gotten better. And that was my thinking.
Okay, the patient is better than when he come in, and is not expected is not deteriorating.
Okay, so that's stable. Okay. All right, okay.
That's stable. Okay? So like I said, the blood pressure is okay, the blood volume is all right, the hemoglobin is good, right? You might be unconscious, but you're stable. Right. You might be in a coma, but you're stable. Okay? That your condition is not deteriorating. Like your blood pressure, your heart rate improves, increases, your pressure start drop, you start bleed, all those then patient is deteriorating. But if all of that is contained,
then
right? Once you contain whatever damage or whatever injury, it could be, even if the patient wasn't an accident, once you have them in a situation where they're not getting worse.
Right.
That's stable.
But
it doesn't mean that you'll have a good outcome.
Well, that was the next question. That was the next question. Someone who is stable, does it mean that from there on it's improvement? It doesn't necessarily mean
you can or cannot.
Right. Okay.
You may or may not. And it depends on the level of illness and what is required to keep the patient in a stable state or improve the patient back. So you're not necessarily well, but you're heading to wellness.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You're not as bad as you were before, and you're not deteriorating further.
Right. Yeah.
But there could be a moment when things change, and you can die or.
So, in a case like that, where you have a stable patient, what are some of the things that are required to ensure that level of stability does not deteriorate? And it could be that it's something that you probably don't have any control over at the time. That's
a big, wide question that you can't answer specifically. If the patient is stable, like I said, you have their blood, you have their vitals in control, the bleeding is contained, they're not vomiting anymore, the diarrhea is gone, and you're replacing fluids and all the rest of it. But that's going to depend on what the patient has.
Right.
What is the situation? So somebody who's in an accident need immobilization. You don't want them to. Let's say somebody had a back injury, had an accident and injured their back, right? And you're able to stabilize them. You get the blood pressure up. the patient becomes paralytic. You don't want all of those things. So you keep that patient in a state that keeps him as well as possible.
Okay.
And even the patient may have had, let's say somebody came and they had a paraplegia, they injured their back and the loss of sensation and stuff in them. But they're okay otherwise. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's an injury that you may not be able to reverse. But the person could still go back and sit in a chair and work and do all his technology work or whatever he does.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just thought I should bring it up because it's a term you hear a lot, and somehow I got the feeling that not many of us.
No, so you can hear critical but stable.
Yeah, critical but stable.
Yeah, you can be very ill, but you're stable. You're not deteriorating.
Okay.
We're trying to get you back. We work on it, but you're not getting worse than when you came.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is some vital information that we just shared because, as I said, I've heard it a lot. I think, and some people probably didn't understand it, but I'm really happy that, you were able to, explain it to us indeed. So, time is going by quickly, but I just want us to, just probably start summarizing the discussion that we had because, the profession is a serious one. And there are times you've heard, stories that are not so nice for the profession. And as you said, sometimes one has to stop for a moment and consider a number of factors. So it's important that we know what is happening, and it's also important for the powers that be to ensure that in order for the doctors to give their best, the conditions must be conducive for good functioning.
Delivering care, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We did not. Oh, quickly, we did not. I had mentioned the issue of the COVID-19 situation, in addition to all the other chronic conditions existing, and I was asking you to just probably speak a little bit on that.
Yes. So again, it comes back to you come into the emergency room, right? You sit down there waiting from 4 o'clock because you're having a migraine. Okay? And then there is an accident just as you're about to go in. There's an accident and the ambulance come in and they bring 2 people who are critically ill. Our bus turnover, right? So you have 10 people come in and they become priority. Remember I talked about the emergency room as a place where you give priority to who
severity.
Gets first.
Yeah, the severity.
Who gets there first, but it's also the severity. So the people who work in the ER have different parameters within which they have to work, right? So you might be there and have a headache, having a serious headache, but the person who came in has had head injury and unconscious. That's a priority, right? That person is urgent and must be seen first. There's a triaging mechanism. There's a mechanism by which people are looked at and decided whether you have priority over the others. It's a relative thing. It's called triaging, okay? And some people just have absolute permission to go in, right? If you come and you have a cut in a big artery and you're bleeding, like a geyser, you are going to go in first, okay? So in the same way, when we had COVID, do you realize that 200 people died in Grenada in a matter of a month?
Yeah.
From COVID.
Yep.
But the other people who were dying, the usual 100 of us that would have died for the month, also died. Mm-hmm. And we saw people who looked okay. I mean, right? You went into the hospital, you didn't get time to lose weight, right? Or to sit down there and have pain. And you went in and perhaps next morning you were gone, or in a week you were gone, because COVID was just like that. What happened in COVID was that a lot of resources, including in the primary healthcare system, had to be siphoned off to where it was more important. So whereas nurse would come and she'll have her chronic disease clinic of people who have chronic diseases but are stable, right? People who have chronic disease but the hypertension and the diabetes and the arthritis and everything fine, or the asthma, whatever we are looking at, right? You had to take nurses out of the system because now there's emergency on 24/7 all over the place where you have these these very ill patients. And some of the nurses had to move towards, and some of the doctors had to move towards the hospital to render services because the emergency, right, moved there. And again, we've seen the places where you have challenges. Try to imagine what's happening in Myanmar tonight. Because we talk about death, right? But we don't talk about the people who are injured. When they tell us, right, about the casualties, they tell us the death. But there are many more people who have injuries and severe injuries, mutilations and stuff. Do you imagine that the doctors are working around the clock? So if you're allergy acting up, you might as well go home and wash it with salt water. I don't know, find something to do, right? Find something to do about it. We really can't care what, when we have 3 people whose hands we can't find, right? And or whose arm is lingering, or whose other limb is lost, who have lost their eyes, that we need to take into the operating theater and stabilize. So it has to do with the level of urgency. And we had not been faced with this ever in our history. Remember, for us, COVID and its demands were unprecedented, never have happened. And so we've had to change the way the staff works, and people had to be moved to areas that were more urgent. There were some skeletons of people who worked in, on the ward and so. But you're going to still have women coming in to have babies, right? And you're going to still have people with strokes and stuff. So it's really a question of managing tight the resources you had, and that people are there understanding that, well, we are accustomed doubling up, but we have to triple and quadruple up in order to make the systems survive. At the same time, we have to remember as leaders in the healthcare system that these people are going to need, the staff is going to need a different level of support and care going through all of that. There must be debriefing, because I don't know that anybody could manage watching 200 people die out of a small space like this in a month. Okay? And not being able to do anything about it. That impotence is what makes it even hard, that you think you can, but you're unable to do anything about it. That is very difficult, because we trained to fix everything. But sometimes how it comes, we can't. Whether we don't have the resources necessary, or whether we don't have the ability or the time, because it all happens so fast. Whether we don't have the support, we might need a neurosurgeon to help us, or orthopedic or gynecologist, and the person comes and they already transpire in the ER. So, there are lots of layers on this onion, as I say, but it will have to depend on what you're given the tools you're given to handle this with, and tools include having other people who are prepared to deal with whatever the situation is, that you can turn to and say, hey, here's what's happening here.
Right. Well, Doc, you just answered my last question, because I was going to ask, my last question was, how does the doctor feel, after working with a patient and doing everything you can to try to get that patient back to wellness, and you get to the point where that you've done everything you can do, there is nothing more you can do, and you are about to lose your patient?
No, and you lose your patient.
You lose your patient.
So I'm going to give you 2 quick stories. I came to Grenada on vacation. This was 1994. I came, my daughter was graduating high school. I came, took a week or 2 and came to Grenada. I went back to work, and I was on duty this Sunday in the ER. And a young boy who had also just graduated from high school went into a pool and drowned. And he's brought to the ER by one of my colleagues whom I knew very much. He was a GP, but very well, doing CPR. And his mother looks at me with those eyes of hope. And I took him into a room, and I knew he was dead. And I attempted to put up a dress. I knew the child was dead. The doctor had been doing CPR for half hour, and he never recuperated. And it's freshwater drowning, and they're likely to drown. They're likely to die quicker. And just by attempting, we started over CPR and stuff, right, in the ER. But the child was already dead. He'd been dead for a while since he came in. And I took him into the ER. In 20 minutes, because there are other people who need to see the child is dead. We know it. But I had to make his mother understand that I am going to do what I can. And I came out and said to her, look, she said to me, thank you for trying. So we need to try, right? She said, thank you for trying. And then me and the nurses went in the nursing station and bawled. About 4 of us sit down in the ER in the nursing station, bawling, right? Because you are human. Remember, my child, I keep seeing my daughter's face on that boy. They just both graduated high school at the same time. Okay? So we're human beings with empathy, we put ourselves into those situations which we have to learn that empathy, being the person that you're caring for. What would you like for yourself? If this were your mother, what would you want to happen for her? Right? Another day, a little girl came in the ER. This was years ago, long time ago. And you know what is progeria? Progeria is a condition where children age very quickly. So a 5-year-old will look like an 80-year-old.
Yes.
That child had a brother. She came in, she was a twin. And I never forget her. She came in and she was talking like a real old lady. I'm serious, because she probably lived with her grand. And then she wanted to poop, right? And she asked us for the bedpan. Poor little thing. She was so small, she couldn't even sit on. There was nothing she could sit on. So we put her to the stoop of the bedpan and held her up, right? And just when she died. She told us about her brother, and he was little like her. So I imagine they both had progeria. But these kids were never seen by the public until that day. She probably started to have pain. And maybe she had a heart attack, right? We don't get out of the ER because it happens so quickly. And they hug up and bawl in the nursing station, go in the back and look at a woman like this wide and bawl, right? You feel it. You feel, what could I have done? Is there anything I could have done? And sometimes you see a doctor walking with a straight face, but trust me, the pain is there and the suffering. Once you have people who are empaths, it might look like they're hard face, but the stony face is just a matter of survival. While it's there, you go home and you don't sleep, right? You go home and you read and you try to forget, what did I do so it doesn't happen again. So I'm gonna wrap up here. You know, life of a doctor is hard, and I think I'm happy in 1933, this day of the doctor was initiated to recognize the work that doctors do, the sacrifice from the day you enter medical school to the day you stop work as a physician, and even then, because people still who have the same physical. Do you know how much time you come to the ER with the flu and the doctor have the flu? Or you have gastro and the doctor has the gastro as well, right? But there he is handling care. Because I know patients who come to my office pretending like they're going to die. They think they're going to die. Yes, I know they feel sick, but I have the exact same thing, especially when you have, those contagious illnesses. We, however, are called to function with a level of empathy, respect for human life, right? Just as it were us, being able to give all that we can with the tools that we're handed. The people who employ doctors have a responsibility to ensure that they're given optimal tools, conditions, everything, right? That's what. But above all, we have to function as a group. All of us complement each other, right? We must support each other. We must stand for each other. We must be equally intolerant to abuse, whether it comes from senior staff, whether it comes from people who come to the ER and cuss you off because they think they know you. What do you? I know you're a little girl. What Nixon girl, what do you? Who you think you are, right? We must recognize our doctors as Dr. Thomas, Dr. Jane, Dr. Mary. Even when they're not behaving correctly, you have to remind them who they are. When I speak to my medical students, I call them Dr. X. And when I call them Dr. X, they behave differently. They behave with more professionalism. They think more. They function at a superior level to what a student is. So doctor, what do you think, right? So belated Doctors' Day greetings to all my colleagues here and everywhere you are. I did put it on my Facebook because it came up, right? And it's about time we got together and really support each other and be able to advocate together for better working conditions, for better pay, for, less bullying and less disrespect from senior staff and governments, because we've seen leaders who have really decimated the names of our colleagues, right? And unfairly so. There's a way in which it is done. If somebody, we have recourse. There's a medical council, which is the disciplinary body of the government for doctors, that if you have a problem with a doctor, do something wrong, you write a letter to medical council, right? But you don't go and cuss him and meet him wife on the street and disrespect them and tell him children this and all the rest. No, we don't do that, okay? We're going to regard our doctors as a very precious part of our population, because they are, in fact. And they have a duty that can only be perfectly executed when they recognize that they can execute it as perfectly as they can, and when the conditions that are required are as perfect as possible. And you have these two phenomena meeting in the same place. The other thing is that I want to urge my colleagues, because we don't do it, we don't take care of ourselves, right? So just how you're sending to, go and do your pap smear, your mammogram and your bloods and all the rest, or check your pressure, go to your dentist, check your eyes, blah, blah, blah. We need to take time for fixing our old cars, right? And we must make sure that we are fit in every way, not just academically and technically, but we must also be physically and emotionally well, and not be afraid to look for the care and the support that we require so that we can remain stable.
Right.
And well.
Doc, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I feel really good that we were able to have that discussion, because, I believe a lot of times, and even among different other professions, we see people, we hear about what they do, but we really don't have a good appreciation, because we've never gotten into it to inquire and to find out. And tonight, and I know there is so much more that we can talk about as it relates to the profession, but I thank you so very much for sharing, those stories and all the information. And I also want to say, on behalf of the listeners, the viewers, thank you to all the doctors for what you do, and what you continue to do. Think about how many people that have been, provided the care and attention and get them back to a state of wellness because of the work of the doctors, and nurses as well. Let me just include them there, because they play a very important supporting role. So I want to include them there. So thank you to the doctors, and belated Doctors' Day as well. Thank you again, Dr. Nixon. Thank you. Every Tuesday night you here with us, without being paid for your services. Lawyers call it pro bono. Lawyers call it pro bono, and I thank you so much for that, because you not being here, we won't be able to share that kind of information. I could come here and read from some kind of website, and that's just it. But you being here, to sort of support all of this and share the experiences means so, so much. So thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for all that you're doing. And it's always such a pleasure, to be here with you on a Tuesday evening to share that information. So thank you again, and thank you to all the doctors. And folks, thank you for staying with us.
And remember, there's still flu out there and mosquitoes to bite us and all the diseases. Wash our hands, wash our hands, wash our hands, wash our hands. Boil your water, because the rain has been coming off and on. There have been lockups in some place already, so please boil your water. We're not getting sick and we're not dying this year from foolishness that we can control. Right. Okay? Yeah. Still time to do your pap smear, check your blood pressure, check your sugar, get your cholesterol checked, you name it, breast examination, prostate exam. Be staying alive. Okay?
Yes, indeed.
And remember, learn one thing tonight, at least one thing. I want you to apply to your family.
Yes, indeed. Thank you again, folks. And don't forget, you can join me tomorrow evening right here, 8:30 for Kaiso Talk. All the best. Over. Good night.
To his plan.